Welcome, everyone. Thanks to everyone who's here joining us. It's always good to see so many familiar faces from all over the country. If you can put your state next to your name, just so people can see where everyone's from. But I was going to say hello to Treat. It's been a minute since we saw you in Arkansas. One of my favorite stories from Treat when I first met him, and he was in the Navy during, or do you want to tell us real quick, Treat? It was the landing of, was it Apollo 13 that you helped pick up the capsule?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, you would expect from a group of veterans, everyone here has been part of making history in different ways. That was one of the cool stories I got to hear as the founder when Treat first joined us. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Brunner, the founder, and we also have our CEO, Alberto Ramos, here, our Director of Social Media and Comms, Reagan Anderson, Marine Corps veteran, fellow Wisconsinite. Go Pack Go. Um, and then Jameson, I believe, is on here as well. Our head of brand, who makes us look bigger and better than we actually are. I see Hamp Lee the third, retired Air Force veteran, 30 years. Hamp's our director of admin. And then, of course, everyone knows Todd Connor. I don't know if Todd's joined us yet, but my co-founder, the one and only, a man who can wear seven or eight, I was going to say six or seven, I'm trying to avoid it, seven or eight different hats at the same time and wear them all well. So anyways, that's the headquarters team. And then we're up to, over 700, maybe 720 folks who've completed our volunteer intake form. All 50 states are covered, and our annual report will be coming out in a few weeks. But, we've worked on 20 plus different campaign efforts in 2026. Many of you here, you've been a integral part of those campaigns. We saw wins for ranked choice voting in Maryland this year. We've had some amazing progress in New York City. Oregon's getting ready to launch a top two open primaries ballot initiative. Oklahoma's gathering signatures right now for top two open primaries. Massachusetts turned in their signatures for top two open primaries to be on the ballot next November. Michigan has a statewide proposed ballot measure for ranked choice voting that people are gathering signatures on. And then here in my home state of Missouri, there's an awesome organization called Respect Missouri Voters that is working to do two things. There's a veto referendum to undo the midterm redistricting that's happened in Missouri that just turned in 300,000 signatures yesterday to veto the gerrymandered maps that our state legislature passed in a special session back in September. So that'll go to the vote of Missourians next November. Hopefully, we'll override those gerrymandered maps. And then Respect Missouri Voters is using our ballot initiative process to pass a constitutional amendment that'll make it harder for politicians to ignore the will of voters. Something that happens in a lot of states with ballot measures is people will pass something by 60%, and then the legislature will refuse to fund it or they'll undo it the next session, which obviously is not respecting the will of the people. In fact, our friend Lisa Rice in Washington, D.C. is dealing with that exact thing right now, where 73% of D.C. voters voted for open primaries and ranked choice voting, and the D.C. Council is doing everything they can to delay implementation or to not fund the open primaries part of this legislation that was passed by 73% of DC voters. So that's what we're up against. That's my intro. I was going to start with an icebreaker. If I could get maybe one or two, maybe three brave volunteers to share your favorite holiday tradition, something that you or your family does this time of year that maybe it's unusual. If someone's willing to share, I guess I'll kick it off and then I'll kick it over to Lisa. Our family tradition, we're a very musical family. We host a party every year that's called Make Music, Make Merry. Everyone who is invited is expected to participate with either a song or a poem or something you want to share with the people. So it's a creative night that we look forward to year. And then, so I'll kick it over to Lisa, and then we'll go to Chuck T.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Our tradition is musical also, but we don't make people perform. It is on Christmas morning, the very first album, but now, of course, it's Spotify that's put on is Booker T and the MG's greatest Christmas hits. And if you like a Hammond organ, you gotta listen to it.
Nice. That's a classic. That's a good one. Thanks, Lisa. Chuck T from Florida. Sorry we missed you in Miami, brother. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so am I, Eric. Good to see you, though, brother.
Good to see
One one tradition I miss is when my dad would round up all the boys, and we'd go in the kitchen, force the women out, and cook the Christmas dinner. That's one I really miss. We would treat them to service that day.
you. Nice. Putting all of us here to shame, Chuck, who don't know how to cook. I will admittedly raise my hand there. I'm great at dishes, though. That's how I contribute is the dishes. Anyone else? One last holiday tradition, and then I'll kick it over, maybe to Alberto, to Todd to say a few welcoming comments. George, from Illinois. Good to see you again. I think you're muted.
Good to see you guys again. Our tradition is at Christmas dinner, we go around starting with the oldest member of the family down to the youngest, and they tell us their favorite story or memory about their grandparent. So it's a fun way of the youngest people hearing stories about family members who are no longer with us, and then hearing stories about, kind of fun to see what the kids think their favorite stories are about the grandkids. So it's a nice family tradition to keep family memories alive.
That's awesome. Love that. Thanks so much for sharing, George. So, Todd or Alberto, you want to say hello and
Yeah,
weigh
I'll
in?
say hi quick and then turn it over to Todd. Tradition for us, we always do Christmas Day tacos and tamales, and it's like a crowd pleaser. You don't have to make turkey or things that are so divisive in my family at least. So that's our tradition. I'm a little under the weather and have a pretty gnarly cough, so I'm gonna keep quiet for most of this meeting. But it's so good to see everyone. I put it in the chat, but go Navy beat Army this week and every week. Over to you, Todd.
We are Navy heavy in our leadership team here, which is great. But we're joint force in how we go to market. I've got a new tradition, which is I do a puppet show for my nephews and nieces. I have this really bad suit that's Christmas trees that I bought on Amazon for $30. So I show up as Mr. Christmas, and then I do a puppet show that the humor is such that there are jokes for adults and kids, and the kids are unaware of the jokes for the adults, and so everyone is laughing for sort of different reasons, but it goes on and on and on. So anyway, that's the second year running. I might do it again this year. I got to get my act together. But I'm mostly inspired by the other stories that y'all shared. George, your story, Lisa, Chuck. So thank you guys for sharing those. And I'll also go on background here, but I'm excited to see all of you. Grateful for everything that happened this year. This is hard. If it was easy, other people would be doing it. What we are doing is hard, but there is not a day or an article that I read, not a day that goes by or an article that I don't read where I am reminded in stark terms as to the criticality of the work that we are doing. I don't know how we get there, but I know that it is like ultimately part of the solution. So I just have so much conviction and so much gratitude for everyone on this call. And with that, Eric, back over to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. I'll double tap on that. Just an incredible amount of gratitude for each one of you. And don't ever feel bad. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't done anything for Veterans for All Voters this year." Anyone who's on our bench, you're lending us your name, your credibility. We know you're having conversations around the holiday tables with family and friends about real solutions to get us out of the two-party doom loop that we're stuck in. You hear us quote all the time, it's over 50% of veterans do not identify as a Republican or a Democrat. I've seen polling as high as almost 60%, right? So this is the future. We're trying to build a new political paradigm. It doesn't exist yet. A lot of people don't think it's possible, but it is possible because of each one of you and because of the thousands of organizations working on this. And so this is the last thing I'll say before I kick it back over to Reagan. And we're going to start Majority Rules 101, which is a great 35-minute documentary that makes our mission, some of the reforms, a little more tangible, a little bit easier to understand. And it's a great tool. It's been a great organizing tool for education and for events for the last year and a half or so since it's come out. But Alberto and I we were down in Miami last week for the National Association of Nonpartisan Reformers, aka NANNER, which I sometimes say Reform Nerds Unite. And it's a Reform Nerd Summit, but it's a very heartening time of organizations and people coming together to talk about what Todd just said. You know, this is very hard, and at the same time, the work we are doing together gives us all a lot of hope, and we are making progress. It doesn't ever come as fast as we would like, right? But we're getting closer than ever to this tipping point moment, and something I'm very excited about in 2026. So, in addition to launching bipartisan veterans caucuses in at least 5 states, there's going to be another film coming out called People versus Politics. And it features 6 protagonists who worked on ballot measures in 6 different districts or states in 2024. And 3 out of the 6 protagonists are Veterans for All Voters leaders. So Lisa Rice from Washington, D.C., Dave Oaklander and Scott Walgren up in Montana, and Lisa Foray in Colorado, who's going to be helping us lead the charge on veterans caucuses. They're all featured in this People versus Politics documentary. It's still in rough draft form. It's being pitched to film festivals right now, but we hope it's going to come out by the middle of 2026. And then that's going to be another awesome tool for us to use to rally more people to this cause, help people understand that this really is a movement. It's a veteran-led movement. It's an independent-led movement, and you all are a big part of building this. So thank you very much. I've been talking for too long. Reagan, without any further ado, are we ready? And feel free to break out popcorn, whatever you want for the next 35 minutes.
We are ready. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then press play, and we're off.
Awesome. Thanks, Reagan.
Can you hear the sound?
No, negative.
Not yet.
Let me try one more time. Okay. There we go. You have to keep pressing the audio button again, but we got it.
All good. Thanks, Reagan.
Making me type in my password. Give me a moment.
This is just peak 2025. Trying to figure out how to share screen with video. Appreciate you guys being patient here. And we just wanted to do something a little different and fun. Usually we'll spend the hour talking about what's going on, but with the holidays around the corner, I wanted to spend some time together, sharing this cool documentary.
Yeah.
Todd, we might have to get you some photos or videos of your past Christmas performances.
Oregon, the puppet show's bringing it back.
All right, let me know if you can hear the sound now.
Good to go.
America, I've got a question for you. Think for a moment about what you want out of your government. Local, state, all of your elected leaders. Good roads, good schools, a place where your small business can thrive and your kids can have more opportunities than you did. You've heard all of that from politicians before, but once you elect them, does that happen? Do you feel represented? Or does it feel impossible to get their attention focused on the stuff that's important to you?
Our elected officials don't listen to us.
They're not listening to us.
They are not being heard here at all.
They don't represent the people.
We're angry because they're not listening to us.
What does it take?
We're living in a representative democracy at a time when 85% of Americans don't believe their elected officials know or need to care what they think. 88% of Americans across all political backgrounds don't believe our political system is working in their interest.
People are disillusioned. People don't think their vote matters.
Unless you are stamped by this party or that party, we just swing back and forth.
I'm hoping it does get better.
But I don't know what the solutions are.
A lot of us have had the experience of going to vote and feeling like we have to settle, having to pick the lesser of two evils from the two major political parties. This is a film about why that is happening, and whether there's anything we can do to fix it. When we started out, we were like a lot of people. Pretty cynical. Pretty sure that we knew everything there was to know. But then we learned something that really surprised us. The November election, you know, the one that everyone pays close attention to, where there's a huge amount of outreach to get people to the polls. In a lot of races, particularly for Congress and state legislatures, that election barely matters. The cake is already baked. The winner has already been decided. Why? Well, because most Americans live in safe Republican or safe Democratic districts, and so the winner was already chosen in the party primary. And that's a relatively new phenomenon. At the start of this century, there were more than 150 competitive congressional districts, which in a given election could swing from one party to the other, forcing both parties to compete for voters in the middle. Now, there's only a few dozen. That means that 87% of congressional seats are uncompetitive. One party is so dominant that whoever wins that party's primary is all but guaranteed to win the general election. And because of that, most members of Congress only worry about pleasing their primary voters. And who are those primary voters? Well, usually they're a pretty small, but very vocal minority at the edges of the political spectrum, the party base. How small is this minority? How about 7%? That's right, in a recent election, 7% of eligible voters cast ballots in party primaries that ended up electing 87% of Congress. 87% picked by 7%. And if you're a politician elected this way, you'll probably want to serve the desires of that 7%. Because if you don't, if you dare to work across the aisle or defy party leadership, you could get primaried.
To get primaried is to have somebody from your own party try to replace you, try to beat you for your party's nomination so that, you know, if you are a Republican or a Democrat, when it comes to the general election, your name is not on the ballot.
Primaries discourage elected officials from engaging in consensus building and compromise with the other party out of a fear that their own primary voters will punish them.
So Joe, member of Congress, is sitting around the office thinking, I can win this district, but only if I win the primary, so I better not screw with the NRA if they're Republican, or I better not ever say no to the Public Employees Union if they're a Democrat. So it becomes a chokehold.
Since the primary is the whole ball game, fear of being primaried is pretty much shapes congressional behavior. Everyone has been slow to catch on to this. Everyone.
And instead of representing you, politicians end up focusing on stunts to please their base voters.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up your
somebody's bleach blonde, bad-built butch body.
A what now?
So it's really important to give the general electorate a chance to sort of own our political institutions again. That's really behind, I think, the set of renovations we need right now.
So what's the solution? Over the past decade, a number of states and cities have been experimenting with new ways to conduct their elections. And that's because, and this may surprise you, in America, there's no single specific way for states to run elections.
A lot of folks don't know that the way they vote is not the way that everyone votes. And there's nothing nefarious or bad about that. It's just the fact. People vote differently in different places.
It's been referred to as the laboratory of the states, right? That the states are going to
try these different things, figure out what works. There's not anything in the Constitution that spells out how elections must be done. It's left up to states to decide.
It's exciting, really, in some ways, because it means that we can have and should have this conversation. In fact, we're supposed to have this conversation. Getting through that initial hurdle of people realizing that's true sort of creates a light bulb moment where you can say, okay, well, let's roll up our sleeves and really talk about what we might do.
In 2022, that experimentation led to a historic moment in election reform. And it happened in a pretty unlikely place. One state completely reinvented the way it conducted its elections, adopting a system that had never been used before in American history. That state is Alaska.
The spirit of Alaska really is reflected in its people. Independent, resilient, people that care about one another as neighbors.
The largest voting bloc of Alaskans is undeclareds and nonpartisans, and they make up about 54% of the electorate.
Scott Kendall is a Republican attorney in Anchorage.
So we had a closed party primary system. Even though nonpartisans could pick one of the party's ballot, they could never vote for who they wanted up and down the ticket. You know, they couldn't vote for a Republican in Senate and then maybe a Democrat in the state House race. And so what you got was criminally low participation. And yet, by and large, those primaries decided the outcome of most of our legislative races.
Alaska's closed primary system was encouraging the party base to demand loyalty from their candidates and to primary them if they were deemed disloyal.
It was very difficult to have a collaborative label. In fact, in 2020, which was my last election, that was a detriment to me. The Republicans that voted did not want someone that was collaborative.
Kathy Giesel was the president of the Alaska Senate until she was primaried by a more strident Republican. His pitch to the party base was that Kathy didn't support the agenda of Republican Governor Mike Dunleavy and had worked with Democrats to keep the government open and deliver a balanced state budget. And in a Republican primary where just 15% of her district voted, she was defeated.
Not only I lost, but 3 of my close friends, Republicans, who also worked across the aisle, lost for the very same reason.
We have gotten to a point in our democracy where elected officials are punished for looking to solve problems for their voters if they are reaching across the aisle.
Hoping to fix what he saw as problems in Alaska, Scott Kendall came up with a sweeping election reform proposal that would come to be known as Measure 2.
We're saying, hey, this is empowering voters, more choice. What could be bad about that? I literally wrote the measure. There was no funding, no supporters, no nothing. I was walking around with a 25-page proposal, like a venture capitalist. Hey, do you want to invest in my idea?
It took some doing, but voters narrowly approved this historic reform that changed how they conducted both their primary and their general elections. First, it established an open, all-candidate primary, where every voter in the state uses the same ballot. Everyone who is running for an office, Republicans, Democrats, and third-party candidates would be listed. And voters would have the freedom to vote for any candidate, regardless of party. Then, the top 4 finishers in that primary would all advance to the general election. And finally, in that general election, voters would rank those 4 candidates in order of preference, guaranteeing a winner who would have majority support.
Thanks for voting.
Let's explain these reforms using something a lot of us do: going out to dinner. Under the old Alaska system, Republicans only got to choose from the menu of one restaurant. Let's say it's a classic American diner. So they could choose meatloaf, or a turkey club, or maybe liver and onions. Well, it turns out that that party base really loves liver and onions. And there's enough of them to make that the choice that gets put forward to the full electorate. Meanwhile, Democrats only get to choose from a pizza place. And while some like pepperoni and others like cheese, there's a strong minority that wants Hawaiian pizza. You know, Canadian bacon and pineapple. And that's the choice. Everyone, even the independents who didn't get a say the first time around, has to choose between the liver and onions and the Hawaiian pizza. You'll get the winner of that contest, whether you want to eat it or not. In an open all-candidate primary, everyone gets a say in determining which menu items move forward, including independents. And it's not just two that advance. In the new Alaska system, it's a top 4. So maybe the meatloaf gets in, or the pepperoni pizza, or maybe it's fish tacos, something from a completely different restaurant. Then, because you want to make sure that most people are happy with their meal, people list their preferences in order. So maybe you want those fish tacos the most, and then you'd be okay with meatloaf, and you don't hate liver and onions. But pineapple on a pizza? Hard pass. Everyone votes, and using ranked choice voting, you eliminate the item with the least votes. In this case, it's that Hawaiian pizza. Every person who listed it as their favorite, you look at their second choice, and you move their votes to that food item. In the end, you're going to get dinner that most of Alaska says they are happy with. This is the system that Alaskans are about to use for the first time. And as we said, not just the first time for them, it will be the first time any state in America has tried this. Before we go further, we should clarify something. Although these reforms are new for Alaska, the concept of election reform goes back more than a century in the United States. To explain that, we're going to have to leave Alaska. Don't worry, we'll be back. And travel to the state of Wisconsin, where party primaries originated just a century ago.
We are in the Wisconsin Historical Society here in Madison, Wisconsin. So we're on the UW-Madison campus. Robert La Follette was a Wisconsin politician, also known as Fighting Bob La Follette. He was a progressive reformer here in Wisconsin.
These backroom, fat cats were getting together with the railroad titans and the industrialists, and they were deciding everything, who the candidates were, who would win. The voters had almost like no role in most elections.
The farmers felt as if they were really getting ripped off. And there was also a distrust of parties. We don't need party bosses telling us what to believe, and we don't need party bosses telling our representatives what to do.
It wasn't a system that was working in the sense of the government being responsive and being controllable by the electorate.
And the primaries were created by reformers like Bob La Follette, who said, no, we, the working man of America, needs a voice in who's going to represent them.
So this was a pretty radical idea to say, actually, we're going to take the power away from party insiders, from elected officials, party bosses, governors, and give it to voters who can decide on a single day who the nominees will be in each of the big parties.
It's an amazing thing that a little more than 100 years ago, there was a really meaningful renovation of our democracy. And all of that came out of recognition that the democracy had been captured by elite interests and it had to be really sort of opened up again.
So what happened? How did the party primary go from being a big reform a century ago to a potential problem today?
In general, what happened after World War II was that the political parties who didn't want these primaries, they fought them tooth and nail for 30 years. They finally said, oh, we can make this work for us. So and this happens with reform a lot, they took a reform and kind of reshaped it to be part of their partisan apparatus. So 100 years after partisan primaries were created as a reform, they're now a problem.
In Alaska, I told you we'd come back.
Yes, madam.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kathy Giesel.
Kathy Giesel has decided to try to get her Alaska Senate seat back. And she's learning to campaign under this new system.
This is my 6th campaign. The previous 5, I've always targeted voters. For a primary, I've targeted Republicans who are going to choose the Republican ballot, and in fact are the only ones that could vote on a Republican ballot. But this is really wide open now, and so I am welcoming the opportunity to stop at every single door. I was opposed to it initially. I was worried that conservative voices would be drowned out. So just stopping by to introduce myself,
Okay.
leave you some information.
All right, thanks.
You bet, thank you.
It's totally changed how I'm campaigning. It's really refreshing. I've been to about 700 doors in the last 10 days, and only 2 men have yelled at me. So that's, yay, that's great.
Kathy Giesel might not have run again if Alaska was still using a closed primary system, which was basically what they had before Measure 2. And it's the same system lots of states still use. In a closed primary, only party members are allowed to vote in their party primary. Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats for Democrats, and independents are out of luck. And political parties tend to really like this system. We talked with a Republican in Nevada who explained why.
As a Republican, we want to be able to vote for the individuals that we think best represent our party and our platform and can advance the party and the platform. We're a closed group, and our group needs to be able to decide on our leadership.
If your state has a closed primary, voters can be locked out of the often decisive primary election if they are unaffiliated, even if their tax money pays for that election. So some independents feel they need to choose one of the 2 parties just so their voice can be heard.
I was a registered independent when I first registered to vote. I registered as a Democrat because I had to vote in a primary, right? It's like pick your poison. But the bottom line is it's still poison.
I really think it's terribly unfair in the primaries that they don't let the people who are not Democrat or Republican vote. That's really not fair at all.
I was an independent voter, and I switched over to a Democrat so I could participate.
Some states have an open primary, where independent voters may have more flexibility, but they'll still have to choose which party's ballot they are going to use to vote. And they can only choose one. Right now, there are just 5 states: Nebraska, Washington State, California, Louisiana, and that's right, Alaska, that don't use a party primary and instead allow voters to pick their favorite from all of the candidates in the race. And Alaska was the first of these states to advance the top 4 rather than the top 2, and to use an instant runoff to determine a majority winner. Why an instant runoff? Why did people start advocating for these new reforms? For reformers, part of what they hope to solve is to make sure that the person who wins has the support of a majority of the electorate. And if you've got multiple people in the race, including some pretty popular third-party candidates, it can be hard to achieve that without a costly runoff election. Going back to our food analogy, what if liver and onions, Hawaiian pizza, meatloaf, and fish tacos all split the vote? Should you settle for Hawaiian pizza if it's got 33% support?
People were very angry to see 3-way races where nobody got a significant amount of the vote. It was like a third in a sense.
You can have someone win who a clear majority of people would rather not win.
And the fact that you could have an independent candidate jump on the ballot at any time and get significant support meant angst over the potential of being a spoiler voter.
One solution is to have a runoff election, but that costs a lot of money. your money. An instant runoff means voters won't have to come back to the polls for another costly election because they have already shared their preferences in case their first choice doesn't succeed. Alaskans voted for those reforms, and now they're about to see them in action. Election day has arrived, and races across the state will be decided soon as voters use this new voting system for the first time in a general election.
Front side is ranked choice voting. Are you familiar? Okay. So here we'll look at this example. So Edna, the voter wanted Edna as the first choice. So in the first choice column, the voter colored in Edna's bubble. See that?
Okay, yeah.
Then the voter wanted Tiffany as the second choice. So in the second choice column, you just move over one column, the voter colored in Tiffany's bubble, and so on.
Kathy Giessel has been talking to voters for months now, trying to make the case for them to return her to the Alaska State Senate.
I have to say that 4 years ago, I don't think we wouldn't have had this kind of conversation. Do you agree with that?
Probably, yes, probably.
And Kathy's contest is one of many. There is also a high-profile race for Alaska's sole U.S. House seat, a U.S. Senate race, and a bid for governor, where conservative Mike Dunleavy is trying to win his seat back. After candidates make their final appeals to voters, and Alaskans have cast their votes, the polls close, and this historic election is over. And what happened with Kathy Giessel? The former Senate president won her seat back, beating the man who primaried her in 2020. Let's take a closer look at that race. After one candidate dropped out, 3 candidates advanced from the primary to the general election. Republican Kathy Giessel, Democrat Rosalind Casey, and incumbent Republican Roger Holland. When the votes came in on Election Day, it was very close. Just 131 votes separated these 3 candidates, with Kathy Giessel narrowly leading. But each candidate essentially had a third of the vote. Rosalind Casey ended up in 3rd place, so she was eliminated. Voters who supported her? Their votes then counted for their second choice. Without these reforms, Kathy likely would have lost in a Republican-only primary, with a small number of voters having a voice. Instead, she won a true majority of votes in the general election, expanding her initial narrow lead to a 14-point victory under the instant runoff. The 2022 Alaska election, the first ever run in American history using an all-candidate primary ballot, a top 4 general election, and a majority winner determined by ranked choice voting, is officially over. But the effects of what happened in Alaska in 2022 are still being felt. Final results in Alaska showed that candidates across the political spectrum could be successful under these new reforms. In addition to Republican Kathy Giessel winning her Alaska Senate race, conservative Republican Governor Mike Dunleavy handily won re-election, while a moderate Democrat prevailed in the U.S. House, and Senator Murkowski defeated an attempt to primary her out of the United States Senate. While much of the focus nationally was on Alaska's congressional contests, it was the outcome of Kathy Giessel's race for the state Senate that really demonstrated the effects of this new voting system. Not only did Kathy return to Juneau, but once there, she led her colleagues on both sides of the aisle to overturn business as usual.
There were a group of very polarized Republicans that really didn't get along with anybody. So it was really pretty easy for me to join with fellow Republicans who were more moderate and with Democrats. We found so much common ground.
You know, potholes are not Republican or Democrat. Streetlights aren't Republican or Democrat. Everybody wants good schools. The points that we disagree on are very few, And so we've just said, okay, those points, the abortion issues, the social issues, we are not going to touch those issues. Those are off. And we're going to focus on things that we can agree on, that we can find consensus on. And it just makes for better government that way. People love it. You saw voter participation increase. You saw much more lively debate out there. And so I was very skeptical of it. And from what I've heard from my constituents, I'm getting emails every day, don't overturn it. So I have no plans to overturn it.
There are outside interests that are impacting our elections.
In 2023, opponents of Measure 2 launched a petition drive to try to overturn the reforms. And in 2024, the Alaska Division of Elections announced that opponents got enough signatures to put repeal on the ballot for voters to decide again. Keep this new system or go back to the old one.
Every voter now has a voice that can be clearly heard with the open primary and then the ranked choice general election. The future of our state is actually now in their hands. With this voting system, it's been taken out of the hands of political parties and kingmakers. You know, we've heard that some party loyalists, shall we say, actually want this repealed because they don't want everyone being able to vote the way they wish.
It turns out that our two parties work very well together in one particular way, and that is, behind the scenes, to rig the rules of the game to protect themselves jointly from new competition.
The parties are never in the front of systemic change because they master the current system for good or bad and don't want to lose their comfort in knowing how to work it. Not a lot of party leaders are naturals for the cover of Do-Gooder magazine.
You know, I haven't seen any polling. I hear that it's close. And yet when I talk to Alaskans and I say to them, open primary, you get to choose across the board. They're very enthusiastically in favor of keeping that. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
The ballot measure that would have repealed Alaska's ranked choice voting and open primary system has very narrowly failed.
In the end, Alaska voted to keep their election reforms. But it was really close, less than 1,000 votes. And it likely would have been repealed if not for Alaska's native tribes, who rallied for reform, believing it gives them more of a voice in Alaskan politics.
What open primaries and ranked choice voting has brought to our community is stunning. This is a way we can own our power.
What I always like to say is open primaries opens doors to underrepresented candidates, right? And so what we're seeing is people who have good ideas that maybe haven't done a lot for the parties or they haven't run for a lot of offices, like they can really kind of get their name in under the system. And I think that's why we're seeing so much support from our Alaska Native community.
Even though that repeal effort failed, it likely won't be the last time that opponents try to go back to the days of closed primaries.
And that's the struggle for reformers, is that you want to get through that time when it's new and exotic, and then it's the norm. In some ways, the challenge for us is to have it be sustained long enough and expanded into more offices enough that it just becomes what people accept as the conditions of the playing field.
So you do it by building coalitions. You do it by finding people who see that this change is necessary, regardless of how many people say it's impossible.
And we, the voters, we, the people, we, the reform community, have a responsibility not just to push reforms, but to navigate what happens once we win with the things that we fought for.
Since we're coming toward the end, this might be a good time to ask, what have we learned? Well, we know that states have a lot of flexibility to design an election system that works for them, without a constitutional amendment or even an act of Congress. And we saw that regular people have the ability to bring change to a system that isn't working. And we've also seen that when legislators are more connected and responsive to all of their voters, they tend to work together to get things done. That cooperation we showed you in the Alaska Senate, that crossed over to the Alaska House, where a bipartisan coalition of members joined together to work on issues important to all Alaskans. Alaskans came together to come up with a solution for the political dysfunction in their state. Maybe election reform could bring change to your state, too. Imagine what it would look like if more and more states adopted these reforms, and those politicians started impacting how Congress works. We don't have to accept the status quo if we don't want to. And we don't have to settle for liver and onions and Hawaiian pizza. Now, we all know change can be hard. And even if you succeed in changing your system, you're probably going to have to fight to keep it. Plenty of folks like this broken system just the way it is, with the power out of the hands of most voters. So, if this reform seems right for you and for your state, it's going to be a challenge. But the reward might be that in your state, the majority rules. That's right. I said the title.
All right. Majority Rules 101. There it was. Yeah. Hat tip to AJ Schnack, the director, who we've met. He's a great guy, in spite of being an LA Dodgers fan. And Unite America, which is one of our closest national partners, Nick Troiano, who's the CEO of Unite America, he was one of the executive producers on this as well. So we're really grateful to them. It's one of the reasons why the resource is pretty much free for everyone is because of Unite America and other great organizations. But all right, so we'll kick it off for just some thoughts, reflections, questions, comments, if you have something you'd like to say. But I thought we would start with our VAV Alaska leader, Brian Schroeder. Brian, I don't know if you saw my message in the chat, but wanted to call on you just because you're in Alaska. You've worked on these campaigns firsthand. And so, what strikes you? And then if you could just give us an update on the current state of play in Alaska.
Well, let me start with what strikes me. I mean, the point they made at the end about is as much as everybody focused on the congressional race, it was the state house races that made a difference. For over the last, it's been well over a decade. This is an example since we'd raised education funding in Alaska, and that had got stymied for years. And finally, with the new bipartisan coalitions in both the House and the Senate, driven by people like Kathy Geisel, we were able to increase education funding this year, the last year in the legislature. So that shows how this works, and it's been very important. And Alaska is one of those states where at the bottom of all the testing scores. So we really needed that, and really shows how this works. We are going to have to do it again next year. There's a ballot initiative in 2026 to end ranked choice voting in open primaries. So we're gearing up to doing it again. One interesting thing, though, it seems to me that couple advantages I think we have this time is, one, I think people are getting used to it. So the argument that it's confusing and hard to operate the system is, I think, gains less traction. The other important thing, and they didn't make this point in the video, is that we elected Mary Peltola as our representative in the House of Representatives in 2022, and Mary's great. But what we faced in 2024 when we went and talked to Republicans was, this system is horrible because it got a Democrat elected to the House of Representatives from a primarily Republican state, and they hated that. Well, guess what? Mary didn't get reelected in 2024. The reason she got elected in 2022, frankly, was a very complicated set of issues, relating to our former rep dying in office. And this was the first time the system got used. There were like almost 40 or almost 50 people on the first ballot that time for House Rep. But so Mary, once things settled out, a Republican got elected to the House of Representatives. So I think this year that ours are going to run out of steam saying, hey, this system's horrible. It gets the wrong people elected when their guy is in the Senate, is in the House. So I think we're going to do better this time, but it's going to be a fight.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. And a couple of things I want to double tap on, and then I'll go, Rachel, to your comment. But so Brian pointed out this was passed originally by Alaska voters in 2020 by ballot measure, and there's been one repeal effort, and there's going to be a second repeal effort here in 2026 that we need to defend against. But he mentioned one of the biggest benefits was this bipartisan governing coalition, and they actually came together this summer. Democrats and Republicans from Alaska flew back to override the governor and to increase education spending. So that's just something that wouldn't happen in another state. So it's a really powerful, inspiring model that we hope more states will take on. So Rachel in Barrington, Illinois.
Yes. Good morning.
Morning.
Actually, afternoon, wherever you are.
Yeah.
I have a real quick question, and then a follow up to something way earlier. Was the Republican representative that was elected then a more moderate voice, or was it business as usual? Does anybody can anybody answer
No,
that?
he's business as usual. He's a
Okay.
Trumper. So
Okay. And then the second question I have is with the rundown at the very beginning of this meeting about initiatives in other states, it sounded like the majority, if not all of them, were advancing a top two. And I'm wondering why top two, because it seems like a more natural breaking of the power structure would happen with the top four or top five. Is there any feedback about why top two? Because I think the most criticism that I have heard is that the California advancing of the top two, I think a lot of people don't like, because it could land the power structure back to the majority party in whatever given state. So if somebody can address that, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. It's a great question. And so the Cliff Notes answer, and happy to have a longer conversation at some point. So the top four model in Alaska includes ranked choice voting in the general election. And what we learned in 2024 is polling wise, ranked choice voting is just, it's more challenging to pass. It doesn't poll as high. That piece is more controversial, especially with our right of center friends. And the top two, the open primary, polls really strongly. So in states that did not pass these reforms in 2024, there were strong majorities who wanted the open primary piece, but then there was a majority that did not want the ranked choice voting piece. And so a lot of states, because of how things went in 2024, a lot of states are choosing just to focus on the open primary, the top two open primary. But to your point, we as an organization, we prefer top four, but we also support incremental change, right? And if you show people that it's possible to move from a closed system to something that's semi-open or open with top two, that's better than nothing. And so that's why we'll support it.
Yeah, we have semi-open in Illinois, and we are so far deep into the Democrat control, it's pathetic. But and I am an independent. Yeah, so incremental, I think, is right, because we have a very active, in fact, legislation at a state level wanting to pass ranked choice voting for municipalities statewide, as far as municipalities being able to make that choice. And so from an incremental standpoint, we'll start there, get people comfortable, and look to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do a quick time check here. It's 12:54. We have about 5 minutes left. So I want to go to Isabel Harmon next, who's in Pennsylvania. She's a veteran and a military spouse, and she's running for Congress as an independent. So Isabel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Eric, and everybody who put this on. This was really interesting. So we're going through the same battle here in Pennsylvania to open the primaries. The only thing that I'm not hearing is ballot access. It's still perpetuating the two-party system, though it is a good, it's a first step in changing how we vote in this country, but I'm not hearing anything about ballot access. So if anybody can explain to me how someone other than a Republican or a Democrat can get on the ballot in an equitable fashion, I'd really like to understand that. Because right now, it's not easy for anyone who's not a Democrat or a Republican, and you're still go to the polls with only a two-party choice.
Yes. So that's also a great question, Isabel. And what I've learned about ballot access, every state is different. In some states, it's much harder for an independent or a third party candidate like you to get on the ballot. In other states, Alaska included, it's relatively easy for everyone to get on the ballot, which is why they had 48 people run for Congressman Don Young's seat when he passed away and there was a special election. So every state is different. The general rule of thumb is that it's about 3 to 5 times harder for independents to get on the ballot, depending on the state. But it's an important issue. The tricky thing about ballot access is it's just most states you have to change that legislatively. You could try to do it by ballot initiative, right? Maybe include it as part of a package, but on ballot initiative, some states have what's called a single subject rule, and you can't take on too many different things. So it's kind of a state by state consideration as to whether or not reformers think they're able to tackle ballot access along with these other reforms. But it's a great question. All right, so we'll go next, and just for a minute or two, Grady, one of our newer members from Kentucky.
Hey there. Good afternoon, all, and from Kentucky. I've jumped on board the Alaska because I like to come with a solution, not just say what the problem is. What I've rallied around was the Alaska model being really simple and fair. I mean, there are some the RCV is like a really good thing, even though it will take some learning. I've noticed some drawbacks with it is like having a huge amount of candidates in the open primary. I think this is a legitimate concern. And there's also pros cons with the mail-in ballot. Studies show that mail-in, with no excuse required, or even, under maybe special circumstances, mail-in, reduce the legitimacy of public opinion if that was going to change too. I think mail-in is a good thing, but it can, without a no excuse mail-in, can reduce the legitimacy of the acceptance of the model. They can easily more say it's rigged. To address the huge open primary with all sorts of non-serious candidates, I propose a 0.25% of getting the district signatures of the voters. That way it'll just eliminate joke candidates and, spam candidates in a huge open primary. We could do this with standardized ballot cards, and maybe there's some other things about transparency requirements that I think signatures is the most straightforward way to kind of gatekeep against non-serious candidates. And we could also do like transparency implementations, like disclosing who their donors are.
So
to save time, I'll stop.
Yeah, thanks, Grady. I mean, and we appreciate your passion. Reforms can get complicated, right? So part of it is we're building a community of people who want to be problem solvers. And then the solution in every single state is probably going to be a little bit different. What is possible, what is powerful, and what will actually change the bad incentives in our system. So with a minute left, I'm going to kick it over to Todd or Alberto for kind of closing thoughts, closing words here to take us out and take us into the holidays and the new year.
Oh, man, thanks, Eric. I'm super inspired by the conversation. Grady, Isabel, Rachel, others, just welcome to the movement. Welcome to Veterans for All Voters. We need more of us on this call. And like Eric said, there's a tension always in kind of pure policies that we know to be highly impactful, and then like the politics of getting this stuff done. And we as an organization uniquely try to live like in the tension of those two things. There are peer organizations that are just purely on a set of policies that and I might even say like proportional representation. It's something that really animates me, and there aren't sort of present day opportunities in most places around it. But it's a great, it can be powerful. Mobile voting can be powerful. Biometrics. I mean, there's all kinds of technologies and tools and resources that we have sort of forbidden from entering the conversation about elections. But if you were actually to sort of sit in a room and design an electoral model that was participatory, allowed for independence with reasonable thresholds to not saturate the ballot, but allow for choice in the ballot, like we would design a very different system. And so I guess we sort of as a community try to live between the tension of like intellectually grounded in policy proposals that we think move the needle, and then trying to acknowledge the politics and think about, how do we get to the end state, acknowledging sort of the tensions at play. So none of this is easy. Every voice matters. You'll have a perspective about what's possible locally. And I encourage you to lean in. Don't wait for direction from us to say like, look, there's something that we could do here in Barrington or in my community, or run for office, or challenge a status quo in some way, and feel free to use the platform of Veterans for All Voters to do that. That's ultimately, what we want to be, is a platform for thousands of military connected patriots to say we've got to do better, and there are solutions at hand. We just have to pay attention. So I'll just say happy holidays to all of you. I hope you have a great time with family and friends, and rest up because we got work to do in 2026. Alberto, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just close out. Happy holidays. Grateful to be part of this VAV family, and hopefully everyone gets some time with loved ones over the next few weeks. See you later.
Thanks, everyone.